Hello, hello. I'm Casey.
And I'm Fallon.
And this is
Render the Darkness.
It's so nice to do it. Fingers. Oh, hey, you're waiting on me. Okay, your fact for this episode is that the acacia trees in Africa communicate with each other. They emit gases to alert other trees to produce the toxin tannin, which protects them from hungry animals.
Nice.
Very interesting.
Very, very interesting.
I feel like I have something in common with acacia trees that I didn't know about. Yeah. I too emit gases.
I was gonna say you emit a funky odor. Okay. Okay. So after that being said, now this episode we're going to be talking about William Dean Christensen, or the American Jack the Ripper. Now I want to go ahead and put out a content warning before we start, because there is quite a bit of sexual violence in this case. So if you want to go ahead and skip it, you're not comfortable with it, completely understand. See you on the next one. So, William was born in Bethesda, Maryland on September 24th, 1945. His dad, David Harold Christensen Jr., and his mom, Genevieve Catherine Mary Brogan, was 38 years old when he was born. His father was born in Salt Lake City, Utah on June 11th, 1907, and he passed away on January 26th, 1988 in Bethesda, Montgomery, Maryland. Now, his mother was born on February 16th, 1907 in Cambridge, Middlesex, Massachusetts, and passed away on September 13th, 1975 in Gardner, Massachusetts. Now, William would be in and out of prison after his first arrest at the age of 24. His crimes at that point in time weren't really that of a dangerous nature, so he would receive light sentences, and he would get out of jail and would get into trouble again pretty soon after being released. Now, in his early years, there were signs of him having a pretty violent temper. Some of his past classmates said that he would respond to being teased by others by getting really angry fairly quickly, and his temper would actually get more vicious as he grew up. One source said that in early 1960, at a Bethesda drive-in, a friend had thrown a salt shaker at the windshield of his dad's car. So William thought it would be a good idea to ram into that friend's car. Now, many people witnessed the incident, and they said, quote, "He was vicious. You don't like having a salt shaker thrown at your dad's car, but you don't counter by hitting another car broadside," end quote. Now, in 1966, William would marry and have 2 children. He would also move from job to job during this time as a postal clerk, sales clerk, and an auto mechanic. In 1972, William's wife would divorce him after he was arrested for assaulting her twice, and she really vanished from his life after that. In 1969, when William was 24, he met a 19-year-old woman who was a government worker that was from Louisiana in a Georgetown bar. He ended up driving her to a pretty isolated area where he raped her and then stabbed her 19 times in the face, arms, and legs.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, fortunately, she did survive, and William was arrested and charged with assault and battery. But he pled not guilty because he said that he had a brief moment of insanity. But the jury wasn't buying it, and he was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Now, William was granted parole in August 1970 after only serving 6 months of his 5-year sentence.
I'm sorry. He only served 6 months for attempted murder and rape?
Yep. Yeah, it's going to aggravate you even more through this entire thing.
These serial killer cases, they kind of all seem to go in that line where, so much of it could have been avoided if they'd just been held to the original sentencing for whatever their first offense was.
Yeah,
because they always get caught time and time again, and they always get chance after chance after chance, and they do wrong with every chance they're given until they finally have done enough wrong that they no longer get chances.
Yep, and unfortunately...
But my God, the level of wrong they have to do to reach that point, it's just... makes no sense.
Yeah. Mm. Now, Dr. Harold M. Boslow, the director of Patuxent Institute, who had examined William thoroughly, said in April 1970, quote, "He is a distinct danger to society, a disturbed, confused individual who has poor masculine identification and some paranoid ideas," end quote.
So even the doctor was like, hey, this dude is a danger to other people. Like,
Yeah.
he should not be on the streets. And they were like, I'm not going to take your word for it.
Yeah.
Let's let him out and see what happens.
Yeah, let's just...
All right, Fallon, let's
Give him a
see
chance.
what happens.
Yeah, let's...
Go ahead, read me what happens.
Not gonna like it. On July 5th, 1972, 2 years after being released, William and one of his friends seen a woman leaving Georgetown and asked her if she would like a ride home. The woman would later testify that William had raped her while his friend drove the car around different dark streets. A Montgomery court jury would later convict him of rape, but was later overturned because prosecutors couldn't produce his friend as a witness. So while he was out on a $5,000 bail, William and another one of his friends kidnapped another woman that was going home from a Georgetown bar. The woman said that William and his friend had taken turns sexually assaulting her in the back seat of their car. She also said that he had threatened to cut her up into pieces with a hacksaw. Then he took her to his parents' home and continued to sexually assault her. He kept her in his home all night, torturing her with match and cigarette lighter burns, and then let her go the next day. Now, William was arrested and he pled guilty to numerous rape charges, and he was sentenced to 16 years in jail.
Uh-huh.
But he was released on parole on April 1st, 1980, after only spending 7 years and 8 months behind bars.
Of course he was.
Now, on June 28th, he was arrested again for the sexual assault of another woman at a bus stop in Montgomery County after being out of jail for only 3 months. And again, he was released on bond.
What the crap? When he was released on bond the first time and then went and raped somebody else while on bond, here's your sign.
Right? I don't understand what the major malfunction was here. Function was
What is
here?
your major malfunction?
Sorry, but I don't know, but it's, like I said, this whole case is just going to piss you off.
Yeah, I'm already irritated and you're barely dove into it, so.
Yeah, because the entire time I was writing, I was just like, are you fucking kidding me? So, now one woman said that a man had offered her a ride home on July 18th, and he proceeded to drive her to his parents' home in Kensington, and he had raped her. When she gave a description of the man, it sounded an awful lot like William.
You don't say.
So a warrant was put out for his arrest, but they were not able to find him. Now, another woman came forth and said that William had picked her up in downtown Montreal. He drove her to a residential area and raped her, and he was arrested and pled guilty to the crime. On April 16th, 1981, he was sentenced to 3 back-to-back 18-month sentences. Now, during all of this time, the Montgomery police found out that he was being held in jail in Canada, and they filed a detainer to, when his sentence was over there, that they would turn him over to them. Unfortunately, after he had served 1 year of only one of his 18-month sentences, he was let go due to an administrative error. Not even 3 weeks later, William would go on a 21-month killing spree. He would move through Canada and many different U.S. states like Pennsylvania, Maryland, New Jersey, New York, Kentucky, Georgia, and Florida. He would use different identities in these places as well and would change up his hairstyle and color, facial hair, and his glasses. I know. In April of 1982, the body of 27-year-old Sylvie Trudel, was found in an empty apartment in Montreal that was owned by William. She had been raped, beaten, and strangled to death, and had been decapitated, and her body was dismembered with a hacksaw. Now, some sources said she had been dead for at least 10 to 30 hours. Another woman by the name of Mariel Guay Some sources say she was 26, some said 24, others said she was 19, so I'm not 100% sure on her age. Her body was found wrapped in trash bags at Isles, about 50 miles northwest of Montreal. Now, she had also been decapitated and dismembered, and they say that she had been dead for 10 days, and both of their bodies were found on April 27th. Now, William was identified as a suspect almost right off the bat for Sylvia's murder because of where she had been found. But the police weren't really sure if he was responsible for Muriel's death because they said that Sylvia's murder had a certain skill behind the cuts and seemed like the murderer had experience. And Muriel's looked to be done by someone who hadn't done anything like that before. But that thought changed pretty quickly because of how both women were killed. So they put out a warrant for William's arrest. William fled Canada and went back to the United States and met up with his parents at Lancaster, Pennsylvania. A few months later, some Canadian detectives interviewed his parents at their home in Maryland, and they said they did meet up with him and they actually gave him $5,000. In the early hours of September 23rd, 1982, the body of 23-year-old Michelle Angers was found stabbed to death outside of her apartment that was located over a bar in Dixon City in northeast Pennsylvania. She was currently working as a dancer at the Oz Bar in Scranton. And Michelle was raped and stabbed 30 times in her upper and lower back, and some of the wounds measured 6 inches deep. The police found a Pac-Man toy that someone said was bought for her by a tall man with acne scars on his face who had picked her up the night before at her place of work. Now, at the time of the murder, William was living in Scranton under the alias Stanley Hull, but would later be accurately identified. Excuse me. On June 29th, 1983, William shot 2 men that he had become friends with at a saloon at the Amtrak railroad station in Trenton over money. Thankfully, the 2 men survived the attack. Now, on December 4th in Philadelphia, William used the same gun from that attack and killed 51-year-old Joseph Conley during a barroom fight, and at this time he was going by the alias Jeffrey Schrader and was arrested for the murder, convicted, and sentenced under the false name as well in Philadelphia. Now, for some reason, when they ran his fingerprints the first time, it didn't come up as a match to anyone. I'm not sure why, because his prints were, in the system. Mm-hmm. But later they would, again, accurately identify William. Now, Jack Mackman, who was the assistant district attorney in Philadelphia, who had prosecuted William, also known as Jeffrey Shader, of the Conley murder, said, quote, "How could he have been free all this time? Mr. Conley would be alive today if those things hadn't occurred. Every time there was a little crack, Jeffrey or Christensen slipped through, and as a result, a lot of people are dead." End quote.
I agree.
Right on the money. Now, 10 days after he was convicted by a jury of the murder of Conley, the Montgomery police believed that William's parents were still helping him, so they decided to watch their house, and the investigators said that they were following a lead that was found in William's parents' trash in Bethesda, and reached out to the Philadelphia homicide detectives to let them know that they had found a letter that had a Philadelphia address on it. Now, the Philadelphia police then searched a house that was pretty run down where Williams was living at the time, which he had moved into after his mother, and he had actually used her maiden name Brogan to buy it with $10,000 in cash in 1983.
Please tell me at some point the mom gets popped for being an accessory.
You just have to listen. Now, while conducting the search, the police found a hacksaw that had human blood and tissue on it, and they found a clear plastic bag that contained chunks of reddish blonde human hair. Now, that evidence would actually connect William to the 2 women that were killed in Canada, and the Canadian police put out a fugitive warrant for William for the 2 murders. Now, because of the horrific nature of the murders, the Pennsylvania police Constable Bill McAndrew started calling William, quote, "a real American Jack the Ripper," end quote. Now, at his court hearing, Williams said, quote, "I think everyone is salvageable. I think more than most, I am salvageable," end quote. They did try to blame his actions on the justice system, claiming that no one ever tried to help his alcohol-fueled instability. Now, Judge Sanders didn't agree with him at all and said, quote, "I can't say I have any hope for rehabilitation as far as you are concerned," end quote.
I think he's proven that to be true.
Yes.
Time and time again.
Every time. Now, William was convicted of both murders in Pennsylvania and was given a life sentence. The Canadian and the U.S. police believe that he has committed at least 12 murders, but some sources say that he actually told one of his cellmates that he had killed closer to 24. 2 in England, 4 in Canada, and 16 in the United States. Now, William ended up passing away on October 31st, 1990 at the age of 45 due to cancer. But his death wasn't actually reported until July of 1991. Now, you did ask about his parents.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they there was charges filed against them for helping him.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to find more information on it. I couldn't really get a lot of details, like what happened, or if they got charged at all, or like what the charges were, if they got what the sentences were.
I mean, they were basically giving him a place to go do all of his...
Yeah, they were harboring him, and I mean, like I said, I didn't put it in here, but I did read that his mother didn't think that he did any of this. She would not
Despite them finding that hacksaw with all the blood and hair and stuff all over it inside her house?
Yeah, and Sylvia was found in his home.
Yeah, so despite those facts, she's still, some people like to say some people's kids. I like to say some kids' parents.
Yeah.
I just, there's a certain point. I know I love my kids more than anything in the entire world. And everybody who has the instinctualness they're supposed to have feels the same way. They would do anything on the planet for their kids.
Right.
But I draw a line at helping them commit murder.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't.
Like, at this point, you're now not only making them, like, enabling them, but you're also encouraging it at this point, which makes you just as guilty as them if that is what they're out there doing.
Right.
So you're just as guilty as killing those people as your kid who did the actual killing.
Yeah, I mean, they would be considered, accessory after the fact?
Yeah.
Or,
it takes me back. There's so many cases that are like that, like the Watts case with Chris Watson Shanann or whatever. Like, his mom, he outright admitted that he did it, and she still was just adamant that he didn't do it. He wouldn't do it.
Yeah. Well, she was definitely in denial on that one.
And I wonder if that's more so what it is. If it's that, maybe there's some kind of part of their brain that for their own psychological protection, they just kind of shut that stuff out and they become blinded to it.
They may be.
Because they choose to be blinded to it. It doesn't make it right.
Right. Yeah.
But...
yeah,
the psychology behind that fascinates me.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely interesting how they can just... I don't know if they're doing it on purpose or if it's just, like you said, just shutting off.
Yeah.
Just so they can't see it or hear it or actually remember anything about it, just so I can just...
Absolutely, because you have cases where you have people who've committed these kinds of crimes, and the parents are standing there on the side of the victims, and they're saying, apologizing and saying how ashamed they are to even be related to that person or associated with that person, and some of them even go to hiding so that they're not.
Yeah.
But then you have people like this parent who aids and abets and then just denies with the evidence just right there in front of her.
Yeah. Well, you also got to realize too, his dad was part of it as well.
Yeah, but the dad didn't do as much as the mom, according to your story, because isn't the mom the one who gave him the $10,000 to get the place? And he was using the mom's last name?
Well, no, he used her last name.
Yeah.
Her maiden name to get the house. Right. That's what it was. But the money that he got, it was from...
both parents?
Yeah, both parents.
Okay, well,
both parents had,
well, then fine. The dad,
equally.
too. Mom and dad.
Yeah, they were both equally, because they both met him at the station, and They gave him that first $5,000. And
I mean, obviously, the main primary criminal here is William. And
right,
the second most liable people in this case would be the justice system.
Oh, yeah, that failed miserably.
And then the third most at fault party here is the parents.
Yeah.
It's just like this domino effect of just unnecessary events that took place, and that could have, if they hadn't happened, this whole thing could have been avoided.
Yeah.
If he had served all of his sentences by the time he actually got out, he may have been too old to go out there and go on a freaking killing spree.
Right. Yeah. Well, I agree.
Well, that was an aggravating case.
Yeah, I know it was kind of short too. Sorry about that, but
don't worry, my long-winded rant at the end made up some time. Expect those always. Yeah. Geminis.
Yeah. It was definitely an aggravating one. Like I said, the entire time, I'm just like, seriously? Like, you gotta be kidding me. It's like, what? Like, I just don't understand how he just kept, like, that guy said, he just kept slipping through the crack each time.
There's a lot of them that do. They just, time and time again, just slip through. Mm-hmm. But all in all, it's a good case.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for sharing.
You're welcome anytime. I'm here every Tuesday and Friday.
I'm here every day.
Well, I'm here every day.
I'm present in front of the camera every Tuesday and Thursday. I live here. Yeah. Well, as always, thank you guys for spending your time with us.
Yes, thank you very much.
And as always, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, opinions, just want to say hi, whatever, feel free to reach out. We will respond every time.
Every time.
Every time.
Every time.
All right. We are
Render the Darkness.
Bye. Are you going to do it?
No.
No. Okay.